This is the introduction video to the dynamic MIDI sources. I'll go over the destinations next time, but this is going to be at least 5 videos. And this first one is just going to be an introduction to the controls, and then I'm going to go over the specific groups of sources themselves. So let me choose a source. I'm going to start with the first one, JS plus Y, otherwise known as CC01, your standard mod wheel source. And then I'm going to patch that into the first one, which is the RT parameters control assign. And again, I'll go over the destinations later, but we're just going to be focusing on the sources and how they behave. Let me go over and assign this to one of the RT parameters. We do that on the master layer, and then I'll just click on my rhythm swing for this GE and assign dynamic MIDI 1. And now our dynamic MIDI source is controlling swing on the GE for module 1. So when I do JS plus Y, we see that our swing is changing. By the way, I did make the max go down to 100 instead of 102, just because I think it might actually kind of mess us up if we're seeing this flick to minus 200, plus 200 at the very top. So anyway, our value is still an absolute controller. So if I move this value, we do see it change, but what matters is the last thing to control the swing will designate what the swing value is at. So even though I have two things controlling it, an RT parameter and a dynamic MIDI source, it's just the whichever one was last. So you can see this, the CC data from JS plus Y has reset this controller, but if I were to move this around, it would reset it again. I don't know why, I just feel comfortable leaving this at 50. So there is one thing that I want to point out, is that there is a bit of stickiness when it comes to this controller. I'm not sure if it's because we're dealing with a parameter that's not like quantized to 7-bit or what, but you can see I am not touching my joystick, and we have a value of 2. So it got kind of stuck. Instead of going to resting value, minimum resting value, it just ended up there. If I kind of, move it around a little bit, we'll get 1, we'll get, oh my gosh, I've never seen it go as high as 7. That's pretty crazy. Oh wow, 15. I guess if I kind of flick it down, I just realized we can get pretty high values. 15 was the highest I've ever seen. That was crazy. Let's see if I can get something that high again. 25, new record. Wow. Anyway, the same can happen at the top. So I got 100 that time, 100 that time, 98 that time, 99 that time, 98 that time. Yeah. So most of the time it won't be so drastic that it'll be all the way at 25, but sometimes it will. Anyway, let's continue walking through the parameters. I guess I could focus on the port channel now, just so we can go from left to right. The port channel is the port from which module, basically, that this is receiving CC data or just source data. We can also choose our alternate dynamic MIDI port. If I open up my MIDI, create new KDF file, no, cancel. I hit N instead of M. I have my alternate dynamic MIDI port set to the Kronos keyboard, but the Kronos is always patched into Karma via the global port channel. So even if I were to change this, we'd still be sending data through this. But this can just make it so it's specifically targeting that. Let's go on to the action types. Okay, so we can choose continuous, which makes sense since this is a CC or continuous controller. It just means that every single value will, create some modulation, or, will create some change in the swing. But we could also do, let's try momentary. So in order for momentary to work correctly, you're going to want the bottom, I guess we could put it all the way at 25, and then put the top down to something like, I don't know, 115. So basically what this does is when it gets past 115, it will output the max value, and our max value in this case is 100. And then it will reset or go back down to the bottom value when our CC goes below 25. So you see I'm going up and up and up. And then once I'm past 115, it suddenly goes up to 100. But you can see that I'll go all the way down. You can see that I'm halfway down and it still hasn't changed back. It's not until I get down to a value of 25 that it will change back to 0. Toggle works very similarly. It just means that once we're past the top value, we'll be outputting max, and then it will stay there even after we go past the bottom. But then when we go past the top again, it will reset back to 0. Something to note: if I go all the way past and I'm at 100, then I don't go back down to 25, and then I go back up again, it won't reset. It only resets once it passes the bottom threshold and then goes back up again. Let's put it back on continuous and then talk more about the top and bottom. So if we have our bottom at 0 and our top at 127, it just means the full range is going to cause changes to the swing. If I change the bottom to like halfway to 64, then we actually won't have any effect until we get past halfway. And then once we're past halfway, we'll output the bottom value, and then when we go all the way up, we'll be outputting the max value. So basically, it compresses the data output just into the top zone. Likewise, we can compress the data output into the bottom zone. Go back up to 64, which means that all of our whole entire range from minimum to maximum will only take place in the bottom portion. So you can see we're halfway up, and we're already outputting 100. Anything past that doesn't do anything. Yep. We can change the polarity, and unlike in our RT parameters where we could actually just flip the polarity via the controllers themselves, we can't do that in the needed that 50. I don't know why. We can't do that here. If I were to try to go top 127 bottom, you can see it actually just drags that bottom down. Let's try putting the polarity on minus though, and we will get the top and bottom values flipped. So basically when I go up only a little bit, we're at 99, and all the way up we're at 0. So you can see that it has switched the minimum and maximum value positions. From plus to minus, I can't remember this. I think this. Let's see. I can't remember exactly what it does. It like goes. It either starts halfway or. Let's see, 100. Okay, yeah. It starts all the way up, so it starts at plus to minus. So it starts all the way up, goes down halfway. You can see. So we're at 99. Let me go to a value of 50% here, and then we're outputting about 50 here. Then going up more brings us back up to the top. So it makes the controller behave in like a V fashion. Yep. So 100 back up to 100, and then similarly we have minus plus, which means we start out at 0. Like the controller, we start out at 0, and then halfway up we're at 50, and then if we go past halfway, we go back down to 0. Excellent. So that's the basic introduction. I'll go over the rest of the CC sources. And by the way, I guess I should just talk about them a little bit. Our first group is all CC sources. Some of them have asterisks because they're kind of more specific to the Kronos. For example, like a vector joystick is not standard in every MIDI controller, whereas something like CC01 would be standard in every MIDI controller. So these have little asterisks, just showing that the Kronos has like a kind of a special CC source. But yeah, so that's it for the introduction, and then stay tuned for the next few videos. Thanks.